All right, Matt. Well, we've had the conversation and sometimes debate here amongst each other, and then also with our viewers about the level of play of one Will Howard, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions last season for Kansas State. He's got a Big 12 championship to his resume as well, but he was certainly good enough for Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, so I mean, like this is not a home run, but it does reflect what certainly seems to be a change in philosophy, or at least a change in approach for Lincoln Riley. I mean, Lincoln Riley definitely seems to be doing things differently, and in many ways, and this is going to be one of the big topics of the show tonight in terms of the bigger picture at USC. Where was this philosophy a year ago? Not so much in terms of Will Howard, but in terms of like building a complete team. Like if you're going after Will Howard in the portal, as opposed to some of the other names that are out there, like you're basically saying you don't need your quarterback to do everything. But that's what Caleb Williams had to do. The roster was constructed such that, and the coaching staff were constructed such that everything was so reliant on Caleb Williams. So and Lincoln Riley pretty clearly neglected other areas of his team with the way he built his coaching staff for 2023. And I'm sure a lot of USC fans are frustrated by all this because, I mean, first off, like D'Anton Lynn, Matt Entz, and now Doug Belk coming in to coach the secondary. I mean, that's an all-star defensive staff. And where was this a year ago? Because if you had these defensive coaches a year ago, you wouldn't have Tackett Curtis in the transfer portal right now. You wouldn't have Domani Jackson in the transfer portal right now, because these guys would have gotten big league coaching, unlike what they received from Alex Grinch and Dante Williams and Brian Odom, the linebacker coach. Lincoln, I mean, it's good that Lincoln Riley is doing all these things now, but of course, because he had to get rid of Alex Grinch and because he had to get rid of Dante Williams, these portal departures on defense were bound to happen. Dante Williams, say what else you want to about him, but he forges strong relationships with the players that he recruits. But the flip side is that if he was ever going to leave, that certainly carried a portal risk with him. And so by staying with Alex Grinch and Dante Williams for another year, as opposed to getting coaches such as what we've seen the past few weeks with Lynn, then Entz, and then over the weekend, Doug Belk, it was just, it's a mismatch in terms of timing. I mean, again, it's good that it's happening, but we're really seeing how big a mistake Lincoln Riley made by not fortifying his defensive staff a year earlier, because now you're seeing the exodus of some really talented players. And the ideal scenario would have been, let's have Doug Belk coaching Domani Jackson. Let's have D'Anton Lynn and also Matt Entz coaching Tackett Curtis. And unfortunately, just the way the dominoes fell, because the coaching staff was assembled at a later point, and because Lincoln Riley appropriately, I might add, wanted quality coaches in these positions. That's the trade-off for getting quality coaches on the defensive side of the ball, was losing time relative to the portal. And that lost time, allowed Domani Jackson, Tackett Curtis, and others to reconsider their place at USC. And then, so as soon as Dante Williams is out the door on Saturday going to Georgia, then Domani Jackson leaves on Monday, less than 48 hours later. I mean, so it's a bitter pill for USC to swallow. To a certain extent, you can say it's the necessary cost of letting Dante Williams go. But the bigger picture is, Lincoln Riley should have insisted on excellence from his defensive staff a year ago. He should have cleaned house a year ago, and now this is why we're seeing that transfer portal exodus. Some really promising players who didn't pan out this past season, but mainly because they weren't coached well. And so it would have been great for USC to now have this all-star defensive staff coaching these high potential players, but it's not going to happen. And so that has to be the very frustrating part of all this for USC. But because USC does have, just to kind of complete the circle here and go back to your initial point about Will Howard, USC is now constructing its roster and its coaching staff in ways that the quarterback is not going to be asked to do everything. Now it's about having that complete team, all the units, all the parts of the roster, all the pieces of the puzzle pulling together to really reinforce and help each other. And that part of all of this I like, but you just wish that Caleb Williams would have been the benefit of that kind of all for one philosophy a year ago, and it didn't happen.
Will, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Appreciate that. On the first day of Christmas, Troy gave me, I messed up the line, didn't I? Troy gave to me a offense without Parker as offensive coordinator. MF targeting Kirby Moore from Missouri. Got to make the college football playoff in 2024 now. That coming in from our Irish fan who is happy about Gerard Parker leaving to go to Tulane, and Marvin Freeman has other opportunities to go elsewhere.
It'll be interesting. So he picks up.
Not the best news for USC. We were looking forward to having Jared Parker for another year.
Yeah. The gift that keeps on giving, but he's leaving. So
anyway, Tim, your overview of all these many news stories, not just today, but really over the weekend, over the past 48 hours.
Well, I mean, what we've seen just over even going farther back is that how Riley talked about the fact that there was going to be an absolute emphasis on the defense. And if you're looking at the guys that are being pulled in, there is a huge haul, both on our recent high school commits, defensive line, as well as the guys they're bringing in from the portal, bringing in the two Beavers down, Akili and Easton, linebacker. I mean, so you're seeing some movement. I mean, like I titled, the portal giveth and the portal taketh away. I mean, that's what's going to happen. With the age now of people can transfer out without any penalty for sitting out. This is what you're going to see. Oh, I'm not going to start next year. I'm going to go find somewhere else. And then also remember, you also remove the position coaches for both of these guys. So, when Tackett loses, Odom, and when you have Damani Jackson losing his position coach. When you lose position coaches, this it's not the head coach or the offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator that they're really concerned about. They spend all their time. They usually commit on those trips. They're committing to their position coaches. So when Dante left and when Odom left, the running was on the line, as well as look at the guys coming in. You're bringing in, probably our new inside linebacker, and so that's going to be more competition there. And it just means that he's going to move on. And as well, out of state guys, you have a guy in Tackett Curtis. He came out here from Louisiana. You're not going to play. It's kind of hard to keep a guy that's away from home. You not get that action. This is more likely. You see it all the time with these guys that are not playing. They get more homesick than if they're on the field. So it's as I like the commitment to defense that was being talked about. I like the offensive line additions that we have here at USC. You're building. These guys are not 5-stars, so they don't have that thick Midwest or Southeastern Conference body, but they do have the frame. You do have those guys 6'7", 270 that might be converted tight ends, but these guys are the kind of guys you see that they come in for a couple of years, they're a project, but they have good footwork, they have good bend, they're real athletes. They put that weight on. These are the guys you see to transfer very well to the NFL, and in a couple of years, I absolutely see that being the case. So I've been very happy. The guy I'm talking about is Taaga that came in recently, the most recent offensive line addition. I'm really excited to see what he can do in a couple of years.
The addition of Will Howard, and this is not a knock on his abilities at all. This is more a a statement on the superhuman characteristics of a Caleb Williams. What it struck me as, and of course, the results, wins and losses, are going to dictate the fans' response of the evaluation of the move. But CJ Stroud to Kyle McCord, Caleb Williams to Will Howard. And if the rest of the team doesn't upgrade significantly, then, you know, you go from a quarterback and passing game heavy dependent situation, which is not healthy probably for the long-term success of the program, but just so that all the rest of that is upgraded to compensate for the loss of Caleb Williams.
It's a really fascinating point, but like within that nuance, the larger reality is that why wouldn't you strive for excellence everywhere, right? I mean, that's the thing that kills me about Lincoln Riley settling for Alex Grinch, for a second year instead of immediately, right after the Cotton Bowl, pouncing, to try and get an elite defensive coordinator. Like, and we can go back to the year one conversation about, he's trying to install his system. And we talked about this plenty on our show here at the Voice of College Football. But when you implode that dramatically and you're not playing the 1989 San Francisco 49ers or another historically great offense, you're not facing Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, John Taylor, Roger Craig, Tom Rathman. You're facing Tulane. And like Tulane, nice little talented team. But, again, like, we're not going to put that team on the Mount Rushmore of all-time great college football offenses. And when you implode the way USC did at the end of that Cotton Bowl, if you are, want excellence, and if you claim to be in the mix for college football playoff berths and national championships, you pull the plug, right? And so Lincoln Riley yet doubled down for one more year, and people in the chat have mentioned that, if you don't have Alex Grinch and Dante Williams in 2023, you probably don't get Damani Jackson in the door as a recruit. You don't get some of these other guys, in the school and on the roster. But I mean, isn't that part of this whole thing that so many people at USC, or not at USC, but just the fan base, a lot of USC fans over the past few years said, but you can't let go of Dante Williams. He's too good a recruiter. And that really, to me, always felt like a false choice. I was always the bad cop on Dante Williams, so I'm going to claim a little victory on this one here. I've been wrong about a lot of other things, but not wrong about this. That, why should we get into positions where we have to choose between an assistant coach's recruiting prowess, but he's not that good in terms of actually developing players? You should be able to get both, right? I mean, there are a lot of assistant coaches out there who do better jobs, who have better track records. And the other thing, and this is where USC has finally made the course correction. But again, why couldn't Lincoln Riley have done this a year earlier? Dante Williams going to Georgia, it's a great fit for Dante Williams because you have Kirby Smart there as the head coach. You have Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann there as defensive coordinators. So you have three really smart X and O guys on defense. So in Georgia, in Athens, Dante Williams can just be ace recruiter. That's all he needs to do. He doesn't need to do diddly in terms of actually developing players, because you have three guys, if not more, who will develop defensive players into NFL caliber studs. So like, that is a smart architecture for a coaching staff. That's the kind of situation where someone such as Dante Williams belongs. And so, why is Kirby Smart the owner of 2 national championships and a mini dynasty at Georgia? He knows how to build a full staff, and he knows where to put certain pieces. And this was Lincoln Riley's mistake, that if you're going to have a guy like Dante Williams, who is all recruiting and no player development for the most part, that might be a slight exaggeration, but only slightly. You have to have the elite X and O guy at the coordinator spot, but he knew that Alex Grinch was far from being the best possible man to be defensive coordinator. So that would magnify Dante Williams' weaknesses, not his strengths. But and so again, it's ironic that, you know, if you had Danton Lynn as defensive coordinator and you had Matt Entz as a defensive assistant, you know, kind of being a sounding board for Lynn and also being linebacker coach, if you had Danton Lynn and Matt Entz on a staff and then you had Dante Williams as ace recruiter, you know, that would be a lot like the setup now at Georgia. But instead, Dante Williams was paired with Alex Grinch and Brian Odom, and that was a recipe for disaster. And disaster is exactly what USC got in 2023. So again, it's good that Lincoln Riley has finally seen the light in terms of coaching staff construction, but he should have seen the light on January 2nd in Arlington against Tulane, and he didn't. Lincoln Riley basically wasted 11 months of everyone's life, my life, Tim's life, Domani Jackson's life, Dante Williams' life, Brian Odom's life, Alex Grinch's life. Should have all done this in January of 2023.
Well, and you know, the worry is, so we won't ever know what Dante, because let's face it, that defensive scheme that Grinch was running put a lot of pressure on the corners, put a lot of guys on islands. Clearly, Domani Jackson didn't seem often that he even knew where he's supposed to be lining up in that scheme. How much we put on the coaching of the quarterback coach. Yeah, you've been on it, Matt. I give you full credit for that. How much is this just a trade up? I mean, you got the opportunity to bring in Belk. You know, you can't pass up on that. I do believe that Riley said that he's not done. They're still evaluating what's going on the coaching on defensive side of the ball. So I don't think that they're done there yet. Clearly, recruiting's not done yet, but they got a couple of young guys that are coming in. But the quarterback room got a hell of a lot thinner losing Domani Jackson, because you were kind of going to pencil him in probably as, you know, he and Covington were probably going to be your starting corners with Roland Wallace gone. But, you know, you have Marcellus Williams coming in from USC, highly touted cornerback from St. John Bosco, highly recruited corner. And then you also have the kid from Los Alamitos is coming in, Isaiah Rubin. And from Texas, you have Braylon Conley. So, I mean, there's young guys coming in, but really you have Maliki Crawford and then Traquan Fegans. He's going to be coming in as well. And you have Jacoby Covington. But that's pretty slim. So, you know, they're going to be fishing in the transfer portal to get some cornerbacks. So that'll be interesting to see how that works.
How much money is Lincoln Riley making? He's making, you know, in the area of, you know, like USC is a private school, so that the exact financials aren't made known, but it's believed to be in the area of more or less $10 million a year. You know, if Lincoln Riley values winning and he values resource allocation within a program, like, he can't just, you know, ask donors and boosters, you know, to fork up certain levels of NIL money. How about he takes a salary cut? How about he lives on $7.5 million a year? You know, that's not exactly a poverty wage. And he shoves, like, here's something a Los Angeles sports fan.
Wait, Matt, because you can't use his salary to buy linemen.
Hold on, Tim. Here's something a Los Angeles sports fan can definitely relate to right now. Shohei Ohtani is deferring so much of his contract with the Dodgers so that they can bring in other guys. Shohei Ohtani is passing up on immediate full payment of his contract so that the Dodgers can win World Series. That should be Lincoln Riley's philosophy. Like, he's not going to go to the soup kitchen or the food bank on $7 million a year. He can still live a very, very, very nice lifestyle. He should restructure his contract. And Mark, here's an example from the recent past. And I bring it up not because this guy is still employed at USC, but because it's a really instructive example in terms of a head coach taking ownership of a program and this item of this topic of resource allocation. Cliff Kingsbury, remember at Texas Tech, and you can talk about how Texas Tech is always going to be outgunned and outspent by Texas, by Oklahoma, by the other bigger programs in that part of the country. But Cliff Kingsbury was paid very handsomely by Texas Tech, and Kingsbury would not pony up for an elite defensive coordinator when he was the head coach there. And part of taking a head coaching job and wanting to make a program great means that you don't take the job if the superiors, if the athletic director, if the president, the school won't give you the resources you need at certain positions to really field a complete program. We can also look at Rich Rodriguez at Michigan. Michigan, for whatever reason, would not give Rich Rodriguez carte blanche to get the very best possible defensive coordinator. That's a big reason why Rich Rod failed at Michigan. It was very similar for Cliff Kingsbury at Texas Tech. Never spent top dollar on a defensive coordinator. And so if I'm a head coach and I really want to live up to my stated commitment, to win big and to be as good as I possibly can at my job, that means I need to make sure my defensive coordinator, my top assistants get maximum investment. I need to make sure my program is getting maximum of investment in all areas, not just my own salary. So if I have to restructure my contract, if I have to redo my deal, and I make a few $1 million less, but I'm still very generously compensated, I need to do the Shohei Ohtani thing. And so like this might seem like a wacky idea, maybe. It certainly is an unrealistic idea. Like we don't see coaches, forfeiting salary, so that other parts of their program can be more resourced. But let's just get this down to brass tacks. If Lincoln Riley really believes in winning, and if he wants to start winning some NIL battles against Oregon, he would fork over a significant portion of his salary. He would become the college football version of Shohei Ohtani in Los Angeles. I mean, he just needs to look at what's happening with the Dodgers, and he can say, maybe I need to be that kind of leader at USC. So it might be wacky, and it certainly might be unrealistic in terms of expecting a coach to forfeit a portion of salary. But if USC wants to win national championships, it's exactly the kind of thing that Lincoln Riley should do.
Okay, three things. I'll do this. 3 things. 1, free Reggie now. But the thing is also, as much as the NCAA loves us, Matt, I don't think it's within the guidelines for a coach to fork over $2 million of his money to buy a couple offensive tackles. Now, maybe if he wants to get more money and attract like a coaching staff, I can see restructuring his contract. But right? Correct me if I'm wrong. The schools aren't supposed to be involved at all in NIL, and technically, it's not supposed to be directed towards a player to come to your school or do it's right. That's all inducement. So on paper, it sounds great, but again, free Reggie. NCAA loves us. If we even tried to do something like that, they would come at us with pitchforks and bullshit like they did last time. So I don't know if that's possible. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know.
I'm not a lawyer either. I would certainly say that USC should be looking into every possible angle to start winning these battles. And one thing about Oregon, while we're on the subject of Oregon and Nike University, what did Oregon do today? Oregon brought in Dante Moore as its 2025 quarterback. Dante Moore is willing to collect that sweet Phil Knight cash and just sit on his butt for a year as Dylan Gabriel's backup. I mean, that should be USC. That should be what USC does. Stacking your quarterback room, convincing a guy to sit for a year behind the proven starter, and you line up your quarterback room, you lock it down for 2 full years into the future. That should be what USC is doing, but it's what Oregon is doing. So like USC can either just watch this Eugene money colossus continue to win battles, or USC should actually step up and actually do something about this crap.
I want the money, but I think you're onto it. But we got Juju Lewis coming in 25. He's better than Moore, in my opinion. He's the real deal. I don't want to scare him off, but also let's take that whatever $1.5 million that Moore's getting to sit the pine and put that into a left tackle. That's what I spend that money on. Because, right, I mean, Matt, when it comes to quarterback, Lincoln Riley's never going to have a problem. He's going to have at the very least, a very serviceable quarterback every single year through the portal.
Yeah. Well, but here's the counterpoint, Tim. Like, if USC was on par with Oregon in terms of stacking its quarterback room, what would happen would be Malik Murphy comes in along with Will Howard, and you get two guys, and Will Howard's the guy in 2024, and then Malik Murphy is you convince him to sit through.
Matt, we talked about that. Remember, you and I talked about that exact same thing.
No, I mean, we talked about it, but I'm just saying the parallel with Oregon stacking Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore would be if Malik Murphy comes in alongside Will Howard, but that doesn't seem to be the way things are trending at the moment. And so USC is definitely playing second place to Oregon. And, so, hey, where are we going to see urgency from this program? And where people within the program need to be looking at this and saying, enough, like this should not be allowed to continue. But until people are do step up with their wallets, with their commitment, the Eugene money colossus is going to continue to win the day.